I've been wanting to build a new welding table for some time now, and so I'm finally gotten around to it, and this is the start and my initial sketch of what I want to make. Not too many requirements, it just has to fit through my little door. And I have to be able to move it around. So this little section here about paint strippers isn't entirely related, so if you want to skip ahead to about maybe 4 minutes, 30 seconds, or 5 minutes, go ahead. Alright, so I have no idea what kind of paint this is. This stuff right here, you can see, at least started bubbling up the yellow paint. This stuff, safe stripper, well, yes, this is a very safe stripper. It doesn't appear to have done anything yet. It's like not touching this paint. Doesn't like it, doesn't care. Okay, this stuff here, Bic stripper, I don't know, maybe they don't even make this anymore. Danger, poison. You can't find fun things like this. It's something that my dad had. Okay, what do we got here? Again, this doesn't seem too exciting to me. It's not like that's going to do much. At least I don't think so. And now the acetone over here, again, I don't know. Well, look at there. The acetone is actually starting to soften it up a little bit there. So it is doing something. I would not be scraping that off with a piece of wood otherwise. And maybe this is doing a little bit of something too, similar to the acetone. But boy, it certainly doesn't do, I mean, look at this here one. This seems to be the ticket right here. And again, I don't even know what kind of paint is on here. All right, enough of that experiment. I sprayed that paint stripper on here, let it soak for a bit, and then I took a wire wheel at it and got off as much of the thick paint as I could. I could probably spray more paint stripper on here, but that was the extent of the can I had. So I'm now going with a 40 grit flap disc. All right, I'm gonna call this good enough for this side. As you can see, I have flipped this thing over, and it is in fact diamond plate on the back side, just an old diamond plate, dock plate, I guess, whatever. It's got some slag here because I cut it with the oxyacetylene torch. I am not a fancy guy with a plasma cutter yet. someday maybe, but so far the oxyacetylene does it for me. And a little bit of slag there. I think the slag is fairly hard, and I think actually where you cut ends up to be pretty hard. So kind of hard on mill bits. You guys can maybe correct me in the comments if I am wrong about that, but I'm just going to take and knock some of this off with the grinder and clean it up a little bit before I actually go to mill this thing all the way down here. The obvious challenge here is that this is about 40 inches long, okay? 40 on the nose. And my mill does not have that much travel, so my mill, I can probably get about 30 inches out of it as far as travel goes. So what I'm gonna do is offset this, mill aside, and then move it over and keep milling until I just barely kiss this other part. Now in the middle of doing this, I'll be swiveling this head around to this other side to get the other part. This is where I get the term one very ordinary man. A real guy would actually have real hold downs here, and I've been too cheap to buy them, which is kind of ridiculous because they're not that expensive. Well, this is insane. I don't know that I've ever had the table on this mill up so high before. I don't know if that's obvious in the camera or not, but it's like above belly button height, and that's high. Well, I think I got it lined up adequately for a welding table. I'm not going to go into how I did this because I am not a milling professional in this sense of getting this thing
perfectly turned around and accurate. I just don't have all the tools for that. I have what I have. Okay. You can use your imagination and criticize if you like, whatever. It's going to be a welding table, not a piano. I'm going to add this piece in the center here as well, because you can never make the welding table too sturdy, right? The other reason why I'm adding it is just based on intuition. I think that this piece of dock plate that I have here that I'm making my welding table out of is slightly potato chipped, ever so slightly. So I am going to fasten it with bolts and adjust it into place perfectly, hopefully. It's not like way off. I mean, it's, you know, very small amount, but I would like it to be just a skosh flatter than it is. Is this a good thing when it starts to smoke? And very minor tweaking to make these here perfectly square. And now I'm going to take and tack in this little piece of angle iron right here that I've got. Friends, right here in this point of the project is usually where things go crazy as far as bracing goes, because I've got these 4 legs here, and I don't know why, but I just overbuild things and put gussets in and you know, irons going across and whatever. I'm not going to do that this time. This thing is going to be insanely strong. This right here, welded all solid, is all it needs. And these angle irons here are actually not so much for bracing. They are for a future drawer project, which I don't think I'm going to finish up right this time, but sometime in the future, I just want a big monster drawer in here to put clamps and all that kind of junk. So, yeah, self-control, and this thing's going to be good enough. I've got all of my plates cut that these casters are going to mount onto, so we have to pop holes in here. These casters are insanely heavy and strong. I'm not a fan necessarily of the urethane casters, because if you actually do put something heavy on them, it is hard to roll. But that being said, the price was right, and so I don't envision these things will ever fail. Look at that. There's like a zerk up here, there's a zerk up down there, there's a zerk in here. These things are heavy duty for sure. tap, 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 tap. All right, so I made these little things right here. Let me get in a place where it'll focus on it. And that is just so that when I put these bolts on the inside of this U-channel, the bolt will have a flat place to go against the head again. And otherwise you're kind of doing a twist on the head of the bolt, which is not so cool. And then I put in 2 washers between here all the way around. So this will actually have a little bit of a gap here. And once I get everything snugged up equally and all these bolts all the way around here, then we're going to check flatness. And depending on, you know, how unflat it is or bowed or whatever, I'll add some shims in here and hopefully get it flattened out a little bit better. Okay, this is about the 4th take or 5th take on this here. Okay friends, so I am about done with this thing other than one minor little cleanup in here with flapper wheel or whatever. I ended up trying to flatten this out as best I could. Now it is a piece of dock plate like I have shown in the beginning. So it's not precision ground, it's a welding table that, you know, kind of an on-the-farm welding table, if you will. So what I did do is, since it's mounted around the frame here on these bolts and it has washers spacing it off of the frame, I use the fact that these washers are not very precision to my advantage. Okay, now I probably am left with washers that are all close to the same, but there's actually huge discrepancies in the thickness of these cheap washers. And so depending on where I put this on and put a feeler gauge underneath here and saw the high spots and the low spots, I would selectively loosen back up and put washers that were thicker or thinner, a combination of a couple of them in those spots, and then tighten it back down and see where I was at and go from there again. So it kind of took me a few iterations, mainly in this corner over here was kind of the bad area. I needed to build up some thickness in this corner. And it's not perfectly flat, but it's good enough for me for now, and I'm not bragging about it, so it is what it is. All right. Let's do one more thing and we'll wrap this up. All right, friends, thank you so much for sticking with me through this little build here. Nothing fancy. We're just talking about a flat plate on top of a welded frame. Nothing more than that, right? But this is going to hopefully spawn other projects that I have in the queue to get finished up, or in some cases to kind of get started and finished. And I want to get on with those projects. I don't want to get stuck in this one here and trying to perfect it. You can start perfecting things and then you never end it because, well, there's a lot of things I want to do with this, and maybe I'll show some little blurbs as we go along. I do want to add a place for storing my C-clamps. I want to add a drawer in here. I kind of prepped for that a little bit. Add a big drawer so I can put, you know, clamps and magnet things and whatever junk tools that you would use in the course of setups and welding and whatnot. So, is what it is. Hit the like and subscribe and all that jazz. Yeah, I know everybody says that garbage at the end of the video, so I get it. We shall see you on the next video, and have a good one.